an academic, or you're a regular guy. We have to be fearless.
FrontlineTV.com.
Dear brothers and sisters, let us go into the breach.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the Frontline with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, as always, joined by Joe Resinello. And once more, dear brothers and sisters, let us go into the breach on the Crusade Channel. Always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Remember, the chat room is always open at crusadechannel.com/chat. We encourage everyone to go to the Crusade Channel, okay? It's not a station. It's not a radio station. It's not a television station. It's a cause. Mike Church has put together a great lineup. And as people who are politically minded, culturally minded, and yes, religiously minded, okay, we should be going there, kicking the tires, look under the hood. We know that you're going to want to become a premium member of the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. And finally, follow Joe and I on social media, wherever you find us, frontlinetv.com, Frontline TV, Frontline with Joe and Joe. It all feeds into each other. We are very, very, very grateful if you would take a moment to share. Like, subscribe, share, whether it's on Facebook, whether it's on YouTube. It all thwarts the algorithms that you know are working against a couple of jamokes like Joe and Joe, okay? Joe Resinello, I'm going to go out on a limb and say YouTube would prefer to put the lid on us, okay? If not outright ban us, I'm sure they'll just put the lid on us. So we rely on our audience. If you like what we do, you have to like what we do and value what we do. Share it with your friends and say, hey, check these guys out. You might like them. We greatly appreciate that. Now, having said that, this has been an eventful few weeks, particularly on the abortion front. We covered abortion per se last week, okay? Let's talk a little bit about the news that came out recently, okay? Now, we want to preface this, Joe and I, all right? What you expect out there, particularly in the Catholic media world, but in the media world, you might get a little bit of, around here at the Frontline with Joe and Joe. Joe and I, we pride ourselves on having a conversation. We say that all the time. It's not just a tagline, okay? It's a conversation that we feel that we could sit around your kitchen table and have. So we're going to approach this news about Archbishop Cordileone in regards to Nancy Pelosi from a very sober, loving, charitable point of view. Okay, we're not going to be fist in the air. Yeah, give it to Nancy and all that kind of stuff. That's not us. If that's what you want, click out now. Go somewhere else. Okay, that's not us. We're going to talk about why this is important, not just for us as Catholics, by the way, politically, even though we're going to get into why this is not political. Okay, we think, all right, but politically, all right, and Nancy Pelosi, why this is important, because people don't think that when the Catholic Church speaks in America, it means something. Actually, it does. It's actually a very big deal. So with that, that's a conversation we're going to have. We're also going to talk about American bishops on one hand and what's going on with Nancy Pelosi. And later in the conversation, hopefully we get to it, the German bishops are off the rail. That might not sound charitable, but we think it is because it's the truth. They are off the rail, and we're going to get into what's going on over there in Germany. Okay, but let's start here with Archbishop Cordileone. And with that, I am going to hand it over to Joe Resinello on the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com.
Well, obviously, we all know Cordileone banned Pelosi from receiving communion. Now, let's be clear. That's just in that diocese. That's not across the whole United States. He is her pastor, her bishop, so to speak, and he can do that. And he's doing that based on the authority of the church under Canon 915. I guess I'll just start it. Good. Well done. Well done. Should have been done a long time ago. Well done. I think a lot of people are jumping up and down about something that, frankly, that's your job. That is your job, frankly. And I'm going to put this out there. I'm not saying he did this because of this. I don't know what's in his heart. I will say this. I did read excerpts of the letter. He said that this has to be a discernible process. I completely get that. I completely understand that you don't just jump to conclusions. You have to reach out to the person. I completely get that. Cordileone has been in San Francisco for a long time. And I'll be honest with you, I do think he's trying to do the right thing and wanted to do the right thing, and we're going to explore that a little bit. I'm sure he tried to reach out to her. I am sure many, 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 many times. Why now? And this is where I'm not going to say this is the thing, but I have to say it. Is it because she's about to resign? She is going to resign this summer because there is no question about it. She will not be the majority leader in November. There is no way that's going to happen. Even Democratic, like an analyst, pundits on MSNBC. I mean, she is not going to be there. She is going to resign. Is that why he did it now? And if he did, I'm not saying that's what he did. If he did, he's playing politics too. And this is all I'm going to say. I am not interested in prelates playing politics. I do understand that they are in the world. Christ says you have to be shrewd as foxes and gentle as doves. I get it. I get it. You can't be an idiot. You have to play you're in the world. With that said, I am sick and tired of political prelates. That's not why we sign up for things. And frankly, men follow men. The church writes things down. If you're not going to follow it, don't write it down. And 915, listen, it's as clear as day, and it's not just her. It's not just her. Stop writing letters. You either follow the rules or you don't. And frankly, we're all jumping up and down for something that's just your job. That's your job. And you did your job.
No, Joe, listen, on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. I get the impulse. I don't know why. I think if this was a year ago, I probably would be on the other side of you. I think you're being very realistic. Okay. I'm not going to say you're not. I could offer you an alternative if that would be okay, Joe Resinello.
Sure.
He knows that she's leaving office. And there's nothing. First of all, let's put it like this. There's nothing he could do that's not going to be public. No, like he can't just call her up on the phone privately and say, Nancy, you're not receiving communion. He has to do it publicly because his priests have to know, everybody's going to know. It's going to be public. So it can, because of that, by its nature, be considered political. However, maybe he knows, Joe, even though he can't hide it from the public and do it privately, it's got to be public. She's been publicly supporting this. All right. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Okay. Maybe he feels like because she's going to be resigning, probably, that this is the opportune time to do something that's going to help her to save her soul. Now, am I being rosy-eyed? You tell me.
I definitely think it's for her good. Listen.
No, Joe. I'm talking about you mentioned the timing. I'm staying on the timing.
Oh, okay.
The timing. She's not going to be Speaker of the House. That goes without saying. All right. We already know that. Okay.
That's at the minimum.
And he might be figuring in his mind, this is the opportune time because maybe that power blinded her. Years of being in power has blinded her. And maybe now being not in government anymore, this is the time where it's opportune to make this statement to her, to tell her my actions for the salvation of her soul, because she won't be, at least on that political level, beholden to the wild-eyed left, of which she has been a part. Now, again, I'm asking. I'm not telling.
Well, we don't know.
Is that wrong for
frankly,
me?
It's a good angle, Joe. It's a good angle. But I if you read the document 915, the canon, I mean, it doesn't get any more ingrained in terms of there's nothing she did recently that would have triggered this now. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it's been pervasive for quite some time.
Okay,
I mean, same thing with Joe Biden, same thing with many, many Catholic politicians. I mean, frankly, the prelates, they ignore that. They ignore that. It's as clear as day. It's written down. I'm not making it up. I mean, like, I'm going to read you what he said. He said this. Corleone said, a Catholic legislator who supports abortion after knowing the teaching of the church commits a manifest grave sin, which is a cause of most serious scandal to others. Therefore, the universal church law provides that such a person or persons are not to be admitted to Holy Communion. The Catechism of the Catholic Church explicitly bans both obtaining an abortion and assisting with one, saying this is since the first century. The church has affirmed this as a moral evil of every procured abortion. This teaching has not changed and remains unchangeable. Direct abortion, that is to say, abortion willed either as an end or a means, is gravely contrary to the moral law. This is nothing new. What he's doing is simply his job. And if you ask me, he had grounds to do it a long time ago. Whether or not the reason why, that's his business between him and God. It's not mine. It is of my opinion. There's people in the chat room that disagree with me. I do think she will resign because I do not think she wants to be under the gavel of McCarthy. Or what the heck? What's his name?
Kevin McCarthy. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think she wants to be second fiddle to him. That's my opinion. I could be dead wrong. Obviously, it's just a speculation.
Well, look, we're gonna have to see. I remember it wasn't as big a deal, okay, because it was back in the day, Joe. We're going to talk about this a little bit at the Frontline with Joe and Joe on the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Joe, back in the day when we were growing up, back in the 70s and 80s, pro-choice meant pro-choice. We don't agree with it. We don't. I take the Rudy Giuliani example. Okay, he's pro-choice, not paying for it, not promoting it. I just don't care. If you want to have an abortion, go ahead, but not fist in the air, kind of like, all right, abortion's legal. But I will only be pro-choice in regards to the idea that I'm not going to make laws that outlaw abortion, but I'm not going to support it and all this other stuff. Hugh Carey, years ago, he was the governor of New York State. Okay. He was Catholic, Irish Catholic. Okay. Later on in life, he did an interview before he passed away, and he said, I regret my position on abortion. Now, he was what I just described to you, Joe Resinello, and all the people out there, pro-choice. Okay. He wasn't pro-abortion. He was pro-choice, and he said, I regret my position. Publicly, to me, that sounds like a repentance. And I'm sure as an Irish Catholic in New York, he repented of that sin. Okay. The difference is what we're dealing with now. Okay. And I think this is where the Corleones of the world and others now who have joined him, like you said, Joe, it should have happened. I'm not going to disagree with you on that. This should have happened quite some time ago. Okay. Is that Nancy Pelosi, and if you ask me, and some people in the chat room are talking about this too. Okay. They just tried to pass federal legislation to have abortion on demand on a federal level through all 50 states. That could be a trigger. I mean, because that is an action I don't think they've taken up to this point. And they lost. That vote went down. Again, thanks to Joe Manchin, who's not Catholic. Okay, thanks to Joe Manchin. Pro-choice used to mean I'm in favor of it being legal. But these people are not pro-choice, Joe Resinello. They're pro-abortion. Nancy Pelosi's been one of them. Okay, and that's why he probably figured, I can't reach this woman anymore. I need to do something publicly to try to invite her, because that's what excommunication is. Not excommunication, not receiving communion. Let's be clear. To invite her to repentance. That's all I'm saying.
No, listen, that's the definitely the aim of it. I mean, Corleone doesn't hate her. We can't hate her, and frankly, that's got to make you think. Like, listen, we're all going to die. That's a line from the Terminator, by the way.
What is that?
We're all gonna die.
We're all gonna die.
But like seriously, and when you're 80, that's on your mind. Like every day's a gift. When you're 50, when you're 80, you're gonna we're all gonna die. And when somebody, your bishop, calls you out, and let's be clear for those who may be listening and say, why you're an extremist, blah 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 blah. She is a public figure making a public stance. You see, there's a difference between, say, her and me. You see, she is a public figure. My father used to say this. The rules apply to me, but they don't apply to people like her. And that's people like my father shouldn't have to make such a statement. That's a scandal. She creates a scandal. And frankly, a lot of people are informed, and it makes them question their own stance.
Right.
Because let's be honest with you, that's what the press does. That's what politicians do. They basically twist and turn the public. That's the name of the game, to get influence. So, I mean, it's a scandal, and he is completely within his right as an archbishop to do what he did. I'll argue with anyone on the earth, and you don't have a chance. I'll show you the documents. He is completely within his right to do that. And ultimately, if you ask me, this should be taking place. Now, why doesn't it, is the question. What has happened to the episcopate in America? I will tell you what it is in basically a very short explanation. The episcopate of the United States gets a fairly large percentage of their budget from the United States government. That is a fact. It's couched from an accounting perspective under immigration. That's where the money is tagged for. I heard, I don't know, I didn't see the budget. I heard it's as much as 40%. If I'm wrong, please forgive me, but it's significant. And basically, what that's doing is you're neutering the powers that be.
That's right.
You're neutering them.
Joe,
That's what happened in Germany, because in Germany, and we'll get into that.
Yeah, we'll get into Germany.
Money corrupts. Listen, when we live in a political state right now, both for the Democrats as well as the Republicans, where special interests run the show. This is not a democracy. Don't think it is. It's an oligarchy.
Joe, you remember a great line in the movie Wall Street where Gordon Gekko, Michael Douglas's character, looks at Bud Fox. He says, "Come on, buddy, you're not naive enough to think we're living in a democracy, do you?"
Well, that's exactly true. I mean, and all these people are, like, we'll use DeSantis, for example. He could become the next president. I'm just using him as an example.
He may.
He's the talking head for his political apparatus. He's not speaking for himself. He cannot speak for himself. He's a talking head for that political apparatus. Joe Biden is not speaking for himself. Well, we know that. But, you know, anybody like on the...
We don't know what he's speaking for.
They're a talking head. The special interests drive the show. That's the way it is. And lobbying and all types of giving money. People don't lobby and give money because they like you. It's the same thing with the bishops. The bishops, and again, don't quote me on the percentage. I don't know how much specifically. I heard 40. I could be wrong.
Say a lot of money, Joe. Just say a lot
significant.
Of money.
And in doing that, what you're doing is indirectly neutering them. What they should do is give the money back. Take a step back. They'll take 5 steps forward.
I was saying recently that they should lose their tax exempt status. I'm going to retract that at least a little bit. But one thing I think they should, because again, if you take away the tax exempt status of the Catholic Church, then you have to take away the tax exempt status of every single religious organization in America, a lot of which are liberal, and they're going to complain about that. So that's not realistic. I wish they would to a degree, because I'd love for you, like you said, Joe, to have their feet put to the fire. Tax exempt status is not something that I don't think is the main thing. I think what you're saying is the main thing. Cut off any funding from the federal government.
I'll use an example.
I'm going to tell you something, Joe, real quick. This is important. Tax exempt status, I think, is a bad idea to rescind that for the. And I said I'm changing my position on this from a few weeks ago. You think about, Joe. You think about the amount of tax the Catholic Church would have to pay in New York City alone, just in property taxes. To me, it would be an undue burden, number one. Number two, then you have to exempt everybody from tax, or you have to get rid of tax exemption for the Jews, the Muslims, the Protestants, and everybody. And that's not going to fly. But I'm with you. Cut off
I don't
that
think
federal
you even
money.
have to go there, because the church should be apolitical. We're talking issues. Catholics should be apolitical. Just because, listen, the church shouldn't be a Republican or a Democratic supporter. It's issue driven.
But Joe, real quick, I'm sorry, but I want to hammer on that a second. But Joe, what we're up against as a church, and I'd love your comments on this at the front line with Joe and Joe on the Crusade channel. What we're up against is everything the church says, because of the media and the culture and everything else, becomes political. Take this action, and I'm going to kick it right back to you. Take this action by Corleone. I'm going to take him at his word that this is not a political act, but it's being turned into one. And he's not doing that. We are not doing that. Okay. But the enemies of the church make everything the church does a political act rather than a pastoral act or an exercise of church authority.
Well, the secular press doesn't understand the church. To be honest with you, it's embarrassing. When I listen to secular coverage of the church, you would think that people, even if you disagree with it, you would do a little research. It's embarrassing. Like seriously, like
Joe,
any person, and I'm not a
Brian,
scholar of church history or church teaching, but what they say, I mean, to be honest with you, it's straight up and down ridiculous.
Joe,
But my point is, an
Diane
issue is not political. Like if you just say simply this, if you're for abortion, you cannot vote for that person. Well, it happens to be that Democrats are for it. I'm not. Here's another deal. If the Republicans are for abortion, it goes for you too.
Susan Collins is a Catholic.
There
From
you
what I
go.
understand.
So this is my point. It's an apolitical statement. So I think the tax exempt status is off. I'm talking about the control, because by giving them money, what it does is it tones them down on other issues because they're getting money. Like, for instance, on abortion, on same-sex marriage, they may not be as vocal because in their head, they rationalize, they say, well, you know something, we do such good stuff with that money.
Right.
And they do. But they say, you know, we don't want to lose that. So, Joe, you're the priest, back off a little bit. Lay off a little bit. And what I'm saying is money does that because people know where their bread and butter comes from. And that's where, and I'll give you a good example. I can remember when I first got involved with the Missionaries of Charity, I sent them a check and I wanted the check earmarked for the mission in Cambodia because I just got back from there.
I think for a second we just lost Joe Rossinello, so we're gonna get him. We're gonna get him back in a second. And I was really interested to hear his Cambodia story. Getting back to Corleone for a second. Again, we're trying to talk about this in a very sober and objective way. I will say this though about the church and money. The church needs to, from any party, the church needs to get out of bed with government. Now, again, we have to make the distinction between getting money directly from the government or having a tax exempt status. Like I said, tax exempt status I have no problem with. But as far as money, because of the fact, and we'll wait to see what happens with Corleone and the reaction he's going to get from his fellow bishops. Okay,
They sent the check back.
Well, we'll
to
see.
me.
Joe, are you with? We're going to bring Joe back in a second. We just got cut off for a second. Joe, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
All right, you for the last minute or so. You were cut it off, but bring it back.
But what I'm saying is the sisters sent them a check back and they said, I can't guarantee that the money is going to go for that. So they send the money back to me. You see, they're not interested in you telling them anything. And that is exactly what money does. When you start accepting money, conditions get placed upon you. Well, you know something, I want you to do this. Well, you know something, I want you to do this. And that's what people do.
Right.
That is why, if you ask me, the bishops don't have power as much as they should or would, because they tiptoe around that issue.
Well,
My view.
Let me say this, okay? I don't think for a second that this is not going to be a very big deal moving forward. I think this is going to be. I mean, the media is already pouncing on it. The Twitter's all over the place with this, okay? And I don't think this is going to go away anytime soon. You want to know something, Joe? Sometimes something like this will happen. It might not have the intended effect, which is to bring Nancy Pelosi to repent of her position. Okay. But it might have the unintended consequence of having other Catholic politicians go, holy crap. No, it's like, I didn't see this coming. Again, Joe, for the reasons that you're saying, I don't think people saw this coming because it's been a long time coming. Okay. A lot of lay Catholics and a lot of priests, okay, a lot of priests have said, why are not our bishops bringing these people and yes, um, forcing them in ways to repentance by saying you cannot receive communion? All right. Like that good priest in South Carolina did with Joe Biden a couple years ago. Now, the point is, um,
He got
I
a
can't.
lot of times these guys get in trouble for that, Joe.
Well,
That's the
yeah,
sick
no, I
part.
know, and and that's hard to deal with, and they have to be courageous within the church. My thing, and what I'm more curious about, okay, is I want to see if that 1/3 of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops that said that abortion is not the preeminent issue in America. Okay, I want to see what the reaction of those bishops is going to be. Is Supich or any of these others, are they going to come out and condemn their brother bishop and what their brother bishop, as you mentioned, Joe Rassinello on the Crusade channel, always in air and always online at crusadechannel.com, that Joe Rassinello you just mentioned is in the canon? It's part of canon law. All he did was enforce canon law after reaching out to her, as he said numerous times. I'm sure this means over the years. I'm sure it doesn't mean just last week. Hey, I tried calling you 5 times last week, Nancy. You didn't return my call, so I'm going to tell you, don't go to communion. No, this has been over time. See, he's been pastoral. He's been merciful, in my view. Okay. Now it's coming to a head. My question to you, Joe Rassinello, I'm going to kick it over to you. Can you anticipate what that third of the USCCB is going to say in response? Or maybe are they going to keep their mouth shut?
Who knows? And I'll be honest with you, I don't even care. I'll be truthful with you. They have to stand before God just like I have to stand before God. And I have my responsibilities and they have theirs. But I'll say this. This is something that Father Stephen Imperato said once when we were talking to him. He said, and he had a late vocation. He said, I did not become a priest to go to hell. And what did he mean by that? I have a responsibility as a priest to say and to speak the truth, to preach the truth, to live the truth. Well, we all do. All baptized Catholics in their state of life, in their own vocation, have to stand before God to live the truth, speak the truth, and to suffer for the truth. That's a part of everyone's life as a Catholic. And here's the deal. If you become a priest, don't expect an easy life. And you have responsibilities just like I do as a married man. As a married Catholic man, I took vows, which means I have to be open to life. That's part of my vows. That means I have to lay down my life for my wife and children. That means there is no such thing as divorce. That is as a Catholic man, well, you have responsibilities too, as a priest and as a bishop. And if you don't want to do them, you shouldn't have that job.
Joe,
I'm sorry. You
listen,
shouldn't have that job. And
I
here's
agree.
the deal. Everyone has to make sacrifices, just like a lay person. You come out of college, there's certain jobs. I knew this when I came out of college 30 years ago. There's certain jobs as a Catholic I can't take because they're going to require me to compromise myself, my morality, to be unscrupulous. We all know we're all adults. There are jobs that require you to be unscrupulous. People lie for a living. Let's be honest. We've all been in the world. We've dealt with liars in the world. There's jobs that mandate that.
Right.
If you don't, and that you make a choice.
Right.
Well, guess what? If that means that you can't do your job, then to be honest with you, you should leave it behind. What I mean by that, then I don't want to be a bishop.
Joe,
Fine. I didn't sign up to be a bishop. If you're not going to let me do my job, I signed up to be a priest. So make me a priest. I'll go to some podunk parish and serve whoever, and I'll die in good standing with God. You see,
Right.
people, all of us have that on us. We all have a level of responsibility, all of us. And and we make choices.
Right.
Yeah. And here's the deal. Pelosi made a choice. She makes this statement. She says, the very idea that they would be telling women the size, timing, or whatever of their family, the personal nature of this is so appalling. And I say this as a devout Catholic, Nancy, Spare me. You were catechized in a better time than I was. You know darn well that abortion's a mortal sin. Please, you made a choice. You made a choice because you like your job. And people make choices. We
Right.
all do. You make choices every
Well,
day,
Joe
and those
Resinello,
choices resonate whether you go into heaven or not. Don't think you're just floating into heaven.
Joe
It doesn't
Resinello,
work that way.
she's made a choice, okay? And hers, she made a long time ago. And Archbishop Cordileone has made his. Now, the thing is this too. You mentioned the good priests out there, Joe Resinello, that now are going to have to contend with this. All right. Because remember something, the Archbishop, God bless him, okay, he's at the cathedral. The other priests are on the ground. Okay. And I really value what Cordileone said. I thought he was very thoughtful. I thought he addressed everything. He also addressed his priests. Okay. And he said in his letter, he said, allow me to observe that we are facing in this particular moment of history is a powerful reminder to us that the priesthood is not for the faint-hearted. That's what you just said, Joe Resinello. Of course, it never was, but for a long time, up until recently, we lived in a society that allowed us to imagine that it was. Let us not fool ourselves any longer, and know how deeply grateful I am to you for you being with your people, shepherding them, challenging them, and leading them to the green pastures that are deeper life in our Lord Jesus Christ. Quote, take courage and be a man. He quoted scripture, close quote. Those guys are going to have it rough. The priests are going to have it rough too, because you know what they have to deal with? Yap, 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 yap in their parishes, the liberal Catholics. Why did the bishop do that? Why is he being unmerciful? You see it all over Twitter and social media, Joe Resinello. He's being, this is the lack of catechesis, which I do
It
blame
is.
the
There's no
bishops
doubt,
for.
but it's also this, Joe. I'll be honest with you. Christ was very clear. He said, if they hate me, they will hate you. You see, this is a conversation that goes way back on our show. Everyone wants to get invited to the barbecue. Everybody wants to get invited to the barbecue. When you start really living your faith, you don't even have people start hating you. Believe it. You don't even have to address them. They start hating you because your life reflects something inside of them that they don't like. And they'll even sometimes they'll start attacking you,
Right.
verbally attacking you, hating you for no reason whatsoever. Christ says this clearly. You either accept that or you don't. You see, that's authentic discipleship. I'll be honest with you. I'll go this far. If you're walking with the Lord and you're not making enemies, you're not walking with God because Christ had many. And you don't even have to, it's not like you have to be a bad guy. You just have to live your faith.
Right.
You just have to speak the truth, live the truth, and suffer for the truth. People are going to hate you. They're going to trust me. Joe, I've been doing this for 30 years, following God. I've made many enemies, some in my own family.
Oh, sure. I
Many,
mean,
many enemies. Hate my
that goes
guts.
without saying. You know
Hate
that
my guts.
you're going to listen. There's
So
many.
my point is, that's part of the deal. And here's the deal. What he did, to be honest with you, this is also scriptural. Christ says, you didn't do anything special. You just did your job. I don't remember where in scripture that is specifically, but I'm paraphrasing it. He's just doing what he's supposed to do. That's it. And if you're not willing to do that as a priest, as a bishop, or as a lay Catholic, I got news for you. You're in the wrong deal, man. And you're only kidding yourself. You're only kidding yourself.
Well, Joe, you got. I will say this. I understand what you're saying, and you're absolutely right. They have a job to do when they have to do it. But Joe, they do. This is not making excuses for them. They have considerations that we don't. They have considerations that we don't know about. We don't know what happens when a priest opens his mouth, when a bishop opens his mouth. Now, we have examples in history. You know, one of the biggest. Now, I'm not comparing, Joe. I'm just telling a quick story, okay, out there for the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. You know, one of the reasons the Catholic Church gets beaten up a lot by people who say that the Vatican and the German bishops who we'll talk about in a minute, but not the current German bishops, the German bishops during World War II. They didn't say enough. Why weren't they more vocal against Hitler? They were. They were. Every time they opened their mouth, people died. That's a fact. I'm not embellishing. A pope opens his mouth, says something, the bishop opens up, people died. People got shot randomly by the Nazis. My point in telling that story, they have considerations that we do not know about. And whatever those are for Coeur d'Leon, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I, as a layperson who's been very frustrated, as you have been, Joe, all right, I'm very happy that it finally happened because I think it's going to have the ripple effect through Catholics who are pro-abortion, and by the way, who are pro-anything that the church is against. And by the way, all you conservative Republicans, pro-contraception Catholics out there, okay, that means you. That means you, because remember something, artificial contraception is also an intrinsic evil. Joe Rossinello.
Oh, there's no question. You want to clear out a church, throw that one out there.
Well, that's going to go over like what was the old line, Joe? That's going to go over like a lead balloon.
But this is, listen, we all have to have our exit interview. We all have our exit interview with God. And to be honest with you, listen, it's about this. You didn't sign up. I told Joe this. I didn't get married to go to hell. What does that mean? That means I have responsibilities. I took vows as a married man. Do I do them perfectly? No, I'm a sinner. I go to confession at least once a month, sometimes more than once a month. But I'm aware of the vows and I try my very best. And when I fail, I confess them. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm a sinner. That goes for priests, that goes for bishops. And here's the deal. You're formed. You have responsibilities just like I do. You don't live up to them. That's your deal. You know what I'm saying? And here's the thing. The bishops, Joe, my Lord. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I don't even get mad anymore. I don't even expect anything anymore. I don't even expect anything anymore.
Maybe that's why a lot of people are very happy with this, because we've gotten to the point now where I didn't see this coming. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I was hoping, praying for her, not for me. Look, this action, Joe, by the way, just so everybody knows out there, this doesn't do anything for me. I don't benefit from Nancy Pelosi, and you don't benefit from Nancy Pelosi not being admitted to Holy Communion. It has nothing to do with us. It has nothing to do with trying to stick it to her in any way. She's on the path to hell. She put her name on a piece of paper that will allow abortion up till the day of birth on a federal level. She's on the path to hell. So is Tim Ryan. So is Joe Biden. So are all of them. And it's about time somebody said, listen, if you think acceptance is love, acceptance of every stupid and evil position you take, I'm here to tell you that's not love. What's love is this, Miss Pelosi. Don't present yourself for Holy Communion until you repent.
Well, Joe, I'll be honest with you. I'll never forget this. I went to, when Benedict came, I went to see him at St. Patrick's, the mass when Benedict XVI was in New York, and Rudolph Giuliani on the big screen received communion, and everyone in the crowd cringed.
Right.
Man's married 3 times, dude. He's married 3 times.
And supports abortion. And supports abortion.
This is where, listen, these are teachings of the church. Stop writing things down. I don't want to see another letter. I don't want to see another statement on a website. The church teaches what it teaches. You either accept it or you don't. And it's your job as the teaching head of the church to enforce it. That's your job. Just like I have a job as a married man. And if you don't enforce it, at least admit it. Say, I failed. I failed here. I'm going to try better. I'm going to try a little better. I failed. But let's not pretend it's not there. That's been, and again, I have my thoughts as to why, but that's why no one respects the church. One of the reasons.
Well, that's why I asked you what I'm curious to see in the near term what the response is going to be of his fellow bishops. Now, we do know this, and it should be many more publicly, okay? But there are a handful Paprocki, Strickland, all the usual suspects. Okay. The neighboring bishop in Napa Valley, because Nancy Pelosi goes to that parish, I believe, in Napa. Okay. And so that bishop came out and basically said, I support Archbishop Cordileone. Joseph Tobin, not Joseph Tobin, Thomas Tobin in Rhode Island. Okay. So there are a
How can
number
you
of
not though, Joe?
no, well,
Like,
Joe,
in
but
all
that's the
honesty,
thing. Joe, we've
like,
been on now the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online for crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Joe, the show's been going on about 40 minutes. That's the question you've been asking for the last 40 minutes.
how?
Why is it not all of them when they know? See, this is what I don't understand. Joe, listen. If you ask me, can I understand the person's position on contraception? Of course I can. I can understand it, okay? Because it seems like a victimless crime. It seems that way. When I got educated in church teaching on that, okay, by reading Humani Vitae a while ago, and other outlets, Catholic outlets, now I understand the intrinsic evil of artificial contraception. I don't agree with it. I'm saying I agree with the church's teaching, and I don't agree with people that challenge that. Okay, but I understand in my reason. I understand how people could come to the conclusion that contraception there's nothing wrong with, but I would argue with them. I don't understand how you've seen all the testimony out there. Dr. Bernard Nathanson, right up to the present. I forgot the gentleman's name, Joe. He's online, testified in front of Congress. He's an Italian guy. He performed like 10,000 abortions. He testified in front of Congress, read into the congressional record what happens during an abortion. Okay. He's now pro-life. Here's my point, Joe. I'm going to kick it over to you. Okay. How do you not know how atrocious this is? Like, how do you not know based on everything that's out there? How could you possibly, Tim Ryan, Nancy Pelosi, Biden, and the rest of you, how could you possibly think in your mind that this is even remotely acceptable?
Well, it's
When you
not.
hear this,
Joe, they're talking heads for a larger party. I mean, they made their decision. You see, again, I'll bring it back to like when you get out of college. If you apply for a job and they tell you in order to take this sales job, you got to lie. You got to lie straight up. And there are jobs like that. You
right,
have to lie. And you say, well, I can't do that. I can't have this job. Well,
right,
it's the same thing. If you're going to tell me that I have to have this job and I have to go along with that, I'm going to say I can't have that job.
right,
Because what does Christ say? What good is it to gain the whole world and lose your soul? That applies to us all. We all make choices. And
right.
that goes for the priests and the bishops too. Like Father Imperato said, I did not become a priest to go to hell. What does he mean by that? That means I have to speak the truth. I have to speak it in charity and in love, but I will speak it. And if you don't like it, I'm sorry, because it's not mine. It's God's truth. And I'm here to tell it to you in love because I love you and I
If
want you in heaven.
if
Do we
somebody
all do that perfectly? Do we all falter? Do we all sometimes miss out on opportunities? Yes, yes, yes. But do we strive to do better the next time? And that is the straight up and down of it.
Well, that's
And
going to
here,
be the argument, Joe Rossinello, against people like us who are speaking out on this. That's going to be the argument against us. Is going to say not making the distinction between personal holiness and the lack thereof through sin. Okay, for which we go to confession, and what, let's say they'll say, well, who do you to judge Pelosi? Because here's the difference: I am a weak sinner who is in need of Jesus Christ. Okay, the distinction to be made is so is Nancy Pelosi, but what she is doing is rejecting the idea that something the church teaches is intrinsically evil. She's embracing it, and then she's promoting it to other people. And if you can't see that distinction, you're a blind man. Now, quickly, Joe, quickly. We don't have a lot of time on the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Remember, go on the website, kick the tires, look under the hood, become a premium member, and most importantly, wherever you see Joe and I on social media, wherever you see Crusade Channel, Mike Church, like, subscribe, and share, do all that fun stuff. Let's pivot to those who are really and also in bed with the government, but who I think are completely off the rails. are the Germans. Okay. And again, I don't understand. Joe, one thing I will say is this. I'm a fairly realistic guy. Okay. There was a Reformation. Okay. We call it the Protestant Rebellion. Okay. Historians call it the Protestant Reformation. Okay. Whatever it was a rebellion against church teaching. But nonetheless, it exists. It's in the world. Protestant theology is in the world. You, me, or excuse me, Jesus, and the Bible, that simplistic theology, that's in the world. Here's my view and my question to you about German bishops, and you could tell our audience about what's going on, okay? If you don't like what the church is teaching, there's a whole bunch of other people that call themselves Christians out there, okay? You could go join any one of them. But why don't you just leave the Catholic Church then? If you
Because
don't
they
believe
want
in
to
what the
change it. Like in
okay,
their
well then
like,
explain that, Joe. Then explain that.
well, people do this even at local levels in parishes. They get involved in teaching like apostolates because they want to form the church to basically justify their own positions. People do this. I've seen this on local levels. People teaching at RCIA. People tell me straight to my face, I don't believe that. What do you mean you don't believe that? The
Right.
church teaches it. It's
Right.
not for you to not believe. Then you shouldn't be teaching. You either believe it, or frankly, to be honest with you, when we say the creed before we accept our Lord in the sacrament, we're basically professing our faith. If
Yes.
you don't have a belief in something, I'm going to say something. You don't believe in the Blessed Virgin Mary. You shouldn't receive. You should sit back and pray about it before you receive, because you have to receive the fullness of truth. I'm not making this up, people.
No,
If you hear my voice and you're like, this guy's a fanatic, he's a fundamentalist. No, I'm a Catholic who believes what the church
well,
teaches
Joe, let me ask
and
you a
has
question.
for centuries.
That creed was created in the 4th century. That's been the creed. We call it the Nicene Creed. Okay. And in that creed, it says, I believe in the Holy Spirit, the Holy Catholic Church, the communion of saints, the forgiveness of sins, and the resurrection of the body and life everlasting. Amen. Did they overlook the part that says, okay, I believe in the Catholic Church? Now, my point is that the Archbishop, the Catholic Archbishop of Berlin, has apologized. Now, this is, Joe, the thing that makes the vein pop out of my head. Look, ever since we started doing this show, Joe, I started out a lot more angry than you. I think you've become angrier, by the way. You have to watch yourself. All right. You better watch yourself, Joe Ressinol. I was always considered the angry guy. But anyway, I'm trying to be much more even keel. However, this is what upsets me. This gets me even more mad, okay, is when you get this particular, let's call him Archbishop. That's what he is. He holds the office. So we're not going to call him an Archbishop. He is an Archbishop of the Catholic Church. Heiner Koch, K-O-C-H, Koch or Koch, okay? The Catholic Archbishop of Berlin has apologized for the Catholic Church's teaching on homosexuality, saying that homophobia was an unholy line of tradition in the church. Joe, I'm sorry. All I could say to that is I don't get it. Like,
Well, here's the
I
deal.
don't
What
get
does he
it.
mean? Because this is where people get, parse words. Homophobia. What do you mean by that? Are
Right.
you
Well,
basically,
exactly. Yeah.
like what I would go to is his statement in 2015 when he says to present homosexuality as sin is wounding. Well, I don't know how else to say it, because it's in the Bible, in Leviticus, and it's also in church teaching. Now you have to say the truth with clarity and charity, but you have to say it. You see, the homophobia part is like a funny word. What do you mean by that? Do you mean that, just because I have a biblical understanding of homosexuality, a Catholic understanding of homosexuality, I'm homophobic?
Right.
No, that's wrong. That's incorrect. I, as the Catholic Church has clearly stated in the Catechism, must respect and cannot discriminate against the homosexual. However, the church is very clear that the actions of those with same-sex attraction are sinful. Now,
Right.
that is about as clear and as charitable as I think I can be, but it's clear. That is not clear. That's ambiguous.
Right. Right. Go ahead.
And here's the thing. Listen, the German church is corrupted because of money. let's get an understanding of
Well,
this for
explain
those.
to everybody out there how the church gets its money in
Well,
Germany.
10% of your like in your income in Germany, you're tithed by the government through taxes, and you have to indicate what religious body you want to give that money to. So the church is very wealthy in Germany because all Catholics, if they say I'm Catholic, and that portion of my income that goes to religious organizations or churches, I'm indicating based on that check that it goes to the Catholic Church, and money corrupts.
Right.
Just like everything in life, money corrupts. I don't want your money. I'm going to tell you right now, Catholics, I don't want anything. Who has money? God has money, and he takes care of me. I'm 51 years old. I'm going to be 52. I have 5 kids, and we're doing just fine.
Right.
God has always taken care of me, and he always will, because I try my best to take care of him.
Let me
And I don't want your money. And that should be the position. God will provide. He has provided for orders. He will provide for people who trust in him, absolutely. And it's a lack of faith. I don't want your money.
Joe, let me cut you off for a second. You're listening to the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossinello, way in the breach on the Crusade channel, always in air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. So we actually always talk about the chat room. John Everett, we love you. But let me explain something to you. We have not trashed Pope Francis. John Everett says in the chat room, since I've been listening to you guys for over a year, you've been constantly trashing the Pope. Getting angry at the Pope, John, is not the same as being disobedient. Okay. If the Pope said to me that I had to do a particular thing, particularly if I was a priest, I would do it. I would pull a Padre Pio and I would listen and be obedient. But I am under no obligation, number one, to listen to the Pope when he speaks, when what he says is his opinion. I give it due deference. I give it its proper weight because he is the Pope. But I am free to reject it if it's an opinion. Let's just talk about his opinion on so-called climate change. Having said that, okay, I don't think that's trashing, John Everett. We're not trashing Pope Francis, but let's be clear, and I think you might agree. He's been doing a lot in his pontificate that make faithful Catholics, let's be charitable, confused, and maybe sometimes a little bit angry because it makes us feel like,
Well,
are
I'll
we
be
doing
honest.
the
I
right
mean,
thing?
I think there's a lot of ambiguity. I don't even want to go there. I think a lot of times he is treated unfairly, in my view. And frankly, my biggest criticism is he's ambiguous, and I think that's dangerous. But
But
I
I don't
also
think
think
I don't think we trashed him, Joe. I
no,
don't think
I
we
never. I'll be honest with you.
I don't think
I
we
never
trashed Pope
trashed the Pope.
Francis.
To be truthful with you, I tread a very fine line there. That's just me. But what I will say is, I think there's ambiguity. It's an approach. You see, people have different approaches, and I'll use the approach of some people to say certain topics like abortion, like same-sex marriage. They feel that it's being pastoral to tiptoe around it without speaking the truth with charity and clarity. I got news for you all out there who are Catholic. We have tried the spirit of Vatican II for 60 years. And let me be very clear, I believe in Vatican II because it's a council of the church. And if you don't, I'll question your standing in the church, because it's as valid as the day is long, the document. And many people, including Gerald Murray, who are far more schooled than me on the subject, echo the same thing. However, it's the spirit. When people start twisting things and couching them under pastoral ways, it bears no fruit. It doesn't work. Ralph Martin, a brilliant man, said the same thing. Joe, it just, even if you're sincere, and many people in this approach, I actually think are sincere. What I'll tell you straight to your face is your approach doesn't work. It doesn't work. Now, that doesn't mean you have a right to beat people over the head with the truth. But
No.
what you do have to do is speak it with clarity and charity. But if you don't speak it, you're not being charitable and you're not helping anybody.
Well, then by
You're
saying
not, and it doesn't work.
but what you're saying then, Joe Rossinello, we're going to have to bring it to an end. We're coming up on the hour at the Crusade channel, on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. Here's again the difference. And we started the conversation talking about the maybe misunderstanding something or being wrong, but being, or sincere, but being sincerely wrong. Like Pelosi, who knows the teaching of the church, this archbishop in Germany, he knows the teaching. He's flat out saying the church is wrong. Now, that's a fundamental belief, Joe Resino.
Well, that's
What those things,
heretical. That's a
well, it's what
heretical statement.
because the church has to interpret, in other words, and define for us, because that's what the church does. That's why Christ created his Catholic Church, to tell us, guys, these are the things that can separate you from the love of God. So if you kill your child in the womb, if you sodomize someone, okay, in other words, these are grave matters. This is an archbishop that's basically saying that because the church teaches that this is a particular grave matter, okay, the case of sodomy, that the church is wrong. And again, this is the most frustrating thing. And again, and you and I can go on with this for a long time. We won't. Okay, we have to bring it to an end. But what I would say to you is this: and this is not a wishy-washy statement. I want everybody to know that. Joe and I think everybody out there listening to us know Joe and I are not wishy-washy. Okay, when we say something, we mean it. We're not just giving lip service. We need to offer our rosaries for our entire church all the time, in every rosary. Okay. Just like in every rosary, many of you out there will pray for the souls in purgatory, pray for the departed. Okay. Pray for the conversion of sinners. We need to pray for the church every day. Archbishop Coach Cock, whatever his name is, all right, Coach, he is a prelate of the church. We need to pray for him. We need to pray for Coeur de Leon. We need to pray for those who are going to come out against Coeur de Leon. And I mean serious prayer. Like I said, I'm not talking about, I'll pray for you. That's not what Joe and I are about. We need to offer some serious prayer and fasting for the
You know,
church.
Joe,
Joe Resinello, we got 1 minute.
what
Hit
I
it.
would say is this. Joseph Pierce said this. Our interview with him is going to be airing this week on Veritas Catholic Network. That's why priests don't get married. They don't have to worry about a family. Then take my title. Take it. They're not going to get killed. This isn't the time of Thomas More where you're going to get thrown in the dungeon. If you're not going to let me do my job, take my title. I didn't become a priest or a bishop to go to hell. I'm going to do my job. And if you're not going to let me, then just take it. And I'll be Catholic. It goes for the married man. It goes for the priest. It goes for the bishop. It goes for the cardinal. That's why they're not married. They don't have those type of responsibilities. And frankly, there's nothing on this earth that should basically lure you away from the truth, because it's not worth it.
Joe, we
You
have to leave it
die.
there. We have to leave it there, Joe Resinello. Great conversation. I think it's an important conversation. I know a lot of people are talking about it. You got Joe and my 2 cents. All right. That's what we think at the front line with Joe and Joe on this. On the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. The last live radio station standing. Remember, the chat room's always open at crusadechannel.com/chat. And we encourage you all to become premium members at the Crusade Channel. Having said that, a little plug for Joe and myself, frontlinetv.com. Frontlinetv.com is our website. Wherever you see us on social media, Facebook, YouTube, wherever, okay, please do an action that will help us in some way. Like, subscribe, share, tell your friends. And yes, Joe mentioned Joseph Pierce. We have an interview with him. We have a radio show, an EWTN affiliate, Veritas Catholic Network in the New York metropolitan area. And we have our interview show there. We would encourage you to go to veritascatholicnetwork.com or veritascatholic.com, where you can hear all the station's content and download that app. Joe and I have great interviews on there. So yeah, we're hopefully having conversations that you think are important and you like to hear. We, of course, want to thank King Dude for having us on the Crusade Channel. We want to thank all of you out there for supporting us in the ways that you do, particularly all the people that, come in every week to listen to our show. And remember, until the next time, that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere. We'll talk to you soon.